I'm also going to share my screen with you guys. I have a little presentation with information to share. So can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So
actually, the mission statement looks like part of it may be cut off of the screen.
Let's see. I think it should all be there. It just says our mission is to grow and develop Oklahoma's visual arts community through education, promotion, and funding.
Okay.
Can you
So
all...
there's maybe a couple letters that are, that's fine.
Is that better?
No.
I think
we can fill in what's not there.
Can everyone see it clearly? Is everyone having problems seeing it?
No, I can see it.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So again, my name is Ariana, and I just want to say thank you for everyone coming today and getting to learn a little bit more about Thrive. Yeah, I'm the Administrative and Artist Relations Manager here at OVAC. So Thrive is one of the programs that I manage, along with our other grant programs here. Okay, trying to multitask and get everything set up. I think my screen is on. But yeah, and so the agenda for today, I have this presentation that I can go over with you guys, and it'll take maybe like 30 or 40 minutes and kind of go in depth about all different parts of, what you need to apply, the requirements, what the Thrive grants are. And I also have some examples of projects that we've previously funded in the past, so you can kind of get an idea. And then at the end, we'll have 15 or 20 minutes so you guys can ask any questions that you all have. And if you have a question that comes to mind, you can also put it in the chat, and I will try to read those at the end as well. So yeah, like I said, we're the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition, and this is one of our programs. We were founded in 1988, and our mission is to grow and develop Oklahoma's visual arts community through education, promotion, connection, and funding. And then we also have a partner that is working with us for this program, which is the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. And this is where we get the funding from that we get to give back to our community here in Oklahoma. So the Andy Warhol Foundation was started in 1987, and in 2007, they started their regional regranting program. And they partner with local organizations all around the country, and kind of doing a similar thing that we're doing. They give money to the organizations in different cities and different states. And then those organizations like us at OVAC, we get to give that back out to the community. So, Andy Warhol Foundation is kind of having a broader reach, being in partnership with all these different organizations across the country. So we're really lucky to be partnered with them. And yeah, it's a great partnership. And what exactly the Thrive grants are. So this is one of many programs that we do at OVAC, and it's just to continue our mission. And this is the third year of Thrive grants, so it's relatively new. And this year we have $60,000 to give to Oklahoma artists across the state, which is amazing. And we have two different categories of grants. So we have the $5,000 Innovator Grant and the $10,000 Powerhouse Grant. And there's only one application. It will just have one question in there where artists get to distinguish which category of grant they would like to apply for based on what they think would best suit their project. So our kind of ideas and recommendations are that the innovator grant will be better for someone that's maybe individually applying, or a small team of people, maybe like 2 or 3. And also just generally projects that have a smaller scale and a smaller budget. And then the Powerhouse grant will be better suited to larger collaborative projects that have a lot of people working together on one project, and just generally larger scale projects that have a very large budget. And also at the end of my presentation, I have examples of projects that we've funded in the past, so I can kind of go over a little bit about where these different projects fit with these 2 different budgets. And also, if you guys have any questions about that, you can also ask, if you have a question about what grant would be better for your project, or you can also email me as well. And then we also have a list of requirements on the left side of the screen, and some limitations of this grant on the right side. So on the left side, you can see that these Thrive grants must have a central focus in the visual arts, which that's just part of our mission, is that we're serving visual artists in Oklahoma. So projects that are firmly rooted in different media like dance, theater, music, or like industry filmmaking probably won't be best suited to this grant. But there are ways that you can, incorporate these different media into your project. They just have to have a central focus in visual arts. So say if you want to make a really elaborate and immersive, sculptural installation that people can walk through and visitors can come and experience this, and you want to tie in a musical element for like the immersive aspect, you can have different elements of different kind of media. We just want it to be rooted in visual arts, since that is what our mission is. And the next 2 items kind of go hand in hand, which is being publicly accessible and collaborative and community-based. So we want these projects to involve collaboration and involve community, and the projects also have to be publicly accessible. And successful applications will be pushing the boundaries of traditional exhibitions. So you definitely can propose some kind of exhibition, but applicants will have all kinds of different projects that they are applying with. So these go hand in hand, because you don't have to serve a super huge community of people with this project. This is kind of up to the artists and to the projects that you're working on. But we just ask that you kind of identify what community you would like to serve. Who's the audience that you want to bring in with this project? And again, whenever I go over previous examples of projects, I can kind of talk a little bit about some of the different communities and different people that have been engaged with different projects over the years. And so whatever community you choose to engage with this project, it just has to be accessible to them in some kind of way. So, a public program, an exhibition, or it can also be virtually accessible in some way, like online. And with COVID, we've seen more of a rise of virtually accessible programming, so that's definitely an option. And I also have examples of projects that have done that in the past. And also, since we have, this collaborative effort, it leads to the next point, which is the lead applicant. You can apply as a group of people, a group of artists collaborating on this project. We just ask that you select a lead applicant. So they will be the one that fill out the application online. They will be our primary contact with the OVAC staff. So like for me, I'll be in communication throughout the granting period with the artist that gets selected for this grant. So they'll be in contact with us. They'll sign the paperwork, receive the funding, and manage it. So you'll have to select one person to kind of be the contact point. And then for the last point, all of the events must be based in Oklahoma, because again, we don't want to, put too many restrictions on this grant, but it is part of our mission as the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition that we want to be funding artists in our community in the state of Oklahoma. And there are, like I said before, with the Andy Warhol Foundation, they do give out grants to other organizations in different states. So, if there's a project you want to do outside of state, you might research on the Andy Warhol Foundation website and see if there is a fit of a different funding source from a different state, because they're all over the country, which is really, really cool. And then on the right side, we have some of the limitations of this grant. You must be 21 or older to apply for the grant. So if you have some collaborators that are younger, that's fine. They can be 21 or younger. But we want the person, that we're in contact with, that's signing this paperwork, that's actually receiving this funding, to be 21 or older. As well, if you're pursuing an MFA or BFA, we don't allow people in MFA or BFA programs to apply for this funding. We want these grants to be going to like independent adult practicing artists, which is also why we have the age limit as well. And also, you are not allowed to apply if you were a successful applicant from last year. So if you got a grant application or a grant award in 2022, we just ask that you take a year break before reapplying. So our grant cycle for Thrive Grant, since it's a larger grant, spans the course of about a year. So the applicants from last year that got grants, they were awarded in like June or July, and then they've been working on their projects all through the year, and now they're about to be wrapping up their project. So you can't, get a grant in like 2022, work the whole year, and then immediately apply in 2023. Kind of have to take a break, just so we can get a diversity of applicants and make it a little bit less competitive, just because we have a limited amount of funds to give out to artists. And we usually encourage applicants to apply with different applications if they reapply for Thrive in the future. So doing a new iteration, a new idea, a completely different project if you would like to reapply in the future. And then, yeah, also, if you are unable to finish your project in the granting period, like I said, the granting period will be about a year long, and I'll get into more depth with this. I have a timeline that I'll go over about what to expect if you get this grant. But again, we don't want to limit what artists are doing, but if you're wanting to take on like a multi-year project that's extremely expansive, it's going to take like 3 to 5 years or something, this might not be the best fit for that project. But you can, if you have a very long timeline of things and projects that you want to accomplish, you can condense it down into, a smaller aspect of that project that you can finish in a year. And then, use that proposal for this grant. Because we also have to have certain record keeping things on our end. So we have all of our grantees for this grant and our smaller grants that we do at OVAC fill out a form, like a report, a short report at the end of the grant year, just to tell us, this is what we did with this project. These are how we use the funds. And so, yeah, all of our grants are based around having that funding being used within 1 year. But again, honestly, you probably could get more funding if you had a multi-year project, if you break it down into smaller pieces, and you can apply for different sources of funding and grants over the course of multiple years. So that's just something to think about. The next slide, skipping ahead, is just a list of application materials. We use Submittable to collect all of our application submissions, and it's a really helpful online website. And it's great because you can create an account with them and start working on your application, and you can save it and come back to it later, because this is a bit of a longer application than some other ones we have. And if you go onto Submittable, you can also see all the questions that it'll ask you, and it will also have a list of all of the materials that you need to have to submit the application. So yes, you will have to select a title, of course, for your project, and then have a short project summary to describe what it will be about. And also beforehand, you should decide if you would like to apply for the $5,000 or the $10,000 category. And then we'll also ask for a list of collaborators. So if you're going to be working independently on this project, we'll just ask, for you, and you'll list a short bio of yourself. And then if you're working with other collaborators, we will ask for bios for them, just so we can kind of get to know who you're working with. And you can also list, if you're working with a certain organization, like you're going to have some kind of programming at a gallery or some kind of event space, you can list them as part of your collaborators too. And then 2 of the important questions that are more directly for this grant will ask about audience and community engagement. So again, kind of defining who your audience is going to be, what kind of community engagement you see coming out of this project, and then your desired outcomes, as well as the importance of funding. So yeah, those are 2 of the big questions. And then there's also a list of kind of more commonplace questions, such as the timeline. So all of the little tasks and things that will need to be done so you can get through this project in the next year, as well as a budget, a CV, and an artist statement, and then any relevant images. So you could have images of past work, or if you have any mock-ups or things that you're already working on for this project, you can include images of those. And that would be really helpful for the people looking over these applications, so they can really get a good idea of what this project will be that you're proposing. And next, we have a proposal scoring matrix, which is really handy. This is also on our website. So if you go to thrivegrants.org, we made this program its own little website just so we can have all of the information. And this is on the website, so you can also reference it at a later date. But if you are planning on applying, I would highly recommend looking over this. Because for all of our grants that we do at OVAC, we utilize a committee to decide which applicants will receive the funding. So, you know, I'm an OVAC staff person, and nobody at OVAC will decide who gets the funding. And it won't be any single person, it'll be a committee of people making this decision. And this is the matrix that they'll use to score all of the applications. And yeah, our committee will be made up of local artists, art administrators. We're also planning on having a former Thrive grantee be on the committee, as well as another person that works for the Andy Warhol Regional Regranting Program. So someone that kind of is in a similar role as me in a different state, working kind of with this similar project and scope. Those are some of the kinds of people that will be looking over the applications. And the applications will be scored based on these 4 different criteria that are listed here. So we have career altering potential, artistic merit of your project, community impact, and the ability to complete the project. So some of the questions that are asked in the grant application will tie into this. And for example, the ability to complete the project. This matrix is mostly saying the committee is looking at, you know, your timeline, your budget, and the logistics of everything to say, is this a fair amount of work? Is this a realistic amount of work to be accomplished for this project in the next year? Is this a realistic budget that will be able to create this project? And just all the details that show that you've really thought all of these things through very extensively. And this is just a great resource because I feel like all of these things, you can just turn them into questions to ask yourself when you're working on this proposal. Like for career altering potential, it says, the proposal is extremely ambitious and is a logical next step for the artists. And it will have profound impact on the artists participating in this project. So you can create that into a question to ask yourself and your artists, you know, like, how will this impact my career? How is this a next step in the art that I've been doing over the course of the last couple years? Yeah. And then on the right side, you can see our priority consideration. And this has 3 different categories. So your application will receive points and priority consideration if your project is serving an underrepresented region in Oklahoma. So this is mostly areas outside of the Oklahoma City or Tulsa metro, which are just areas of the state that probably don't have as much support for the arts. As well as if you have Native people or people of color collaborating with your project, and if you just have outstanding collaboration with this project and the community that you're focusing on. So you could be collaborating with more artists, businesses, nonprofits, cultural centers, libraries, all kinds of places that you can connect with more people. Yeah, and all different kinds of ways to do that. And next, we have a timeline of what to expect if you are selected to be a grantee this year. So the applications opened April 1st. We're having this Thrive Zoom info session. And then the next free resource that will be available to anyone that's interested in applying is I'm going to be hosting some office hours May 15th through the 18th. So if you all are interested in that, you can email me. And that's just so, you know, you can have someone else. I'll look over your application make sure you're answering every question, have all the materials, and, you know, just be someone to go over that with you before you submit to look over everything. And then the applications will close on June 1st. And then between June 1st, I will, you know, look through everyone's applications, verify that everything is in line, all the eligibility requirements are met. And then I'll hand it off to our committee and they'll look over all the applications, score them with that matrix that I just showed you. And then we'll have a meeting where they will decide who will be getting the grant funding this year. And everyone will be notified by July 31st, the end of July. And then this is kind of what I was talking about. The granting period will be from August 2023 to June 2024. So you have a whole year to work on this project and bring it to fruition. And the way that we usually do this is we disperse the grant funds in 3 different installments over the course of the year. And then we'll also have periodic check-ins with me as the OVAC staff representative. And this year we also started a new component of Thrive, which is hiring a Thrive mentor. And that was really great because it was just another person to kind of, you know, check in with, ask questions. We hired an artist that was awarded a grant in 2021. And so she had experience, you know, doing larger scale projects, doing community-based projects. So it's just another person to kind of bounce ideas off of and ask questions to. And then in June of 2024, we will have a public presentation to celebrate all of the grantees from 2023. So you'll get to meet all of the other people that got awarded a Thrive grant, do a short presentation on what your project was, all the things that you accomplished, and just get to celebrate and meet, you know, all the people that were involved in this project. And then I'm kind of wrapping up, just a couple more slides, but these are examples of projects that we funded over the last 2 years. So these were recipients from 2021, and we had more, but I just selected 3 that I thought were a diverse range of all the different projects that we had. So we had Shelly Goodmanson. Her project was called Faces of Our Community. And her community that she was serving was the town that she lived in, which was in Cashin, Oklahoma. And so she had different clay portrait classes that she hosted, I think at some of the local schools and like community centers there. So the community would get to engage in this fun art project. And then at the end, it culminated in an exhibition where all of them were displayed and everyone was able to attend. And just like a really wholesome, you know, community engagement project, getting the art out to so many people in her community. And this was kind of like a smaller scale in terms of budget, because I think she was really doing most of the work. And then we also have John Flores's project, We Are Queer Oklahoma, which this was a digital and print media project. So it was kind of like 2 components working in tandem. There was a website as well as a printed zine that he made showcasing the queer community in Oklahoma. And so you could visit the website, learn more about this project, and then he would also mail out free zines to people across the state. And I think just like anyone that was interested, and he also distributed them at different community centers, especially like queer community centers. And this was also kind of a smaller budget project that mostly involved him. And this is also an example of like a virtually accessible program that is sending these things out to people and is distributed in person as well, but isn't as much relying on a very large public facing event that's in person. And then we also had Virginia Cites This Project, which was a Sunny Days Mural Festival. And this is kind of on the other end of the spectrum, where this was a very large project that the budget was also very large. It was large in scale. And it was a mural festival dedicated to women and non-binary artists. So that also kind of has a large reach in terms of the demographic, since it's a women's mural festival. And the funding that she received from this grant was only like a small portion of her final budget, just because of the very large nature of the festival and the fact that all of the different artists that were painting murals at this festival were also collaborators that were being paid to create artwork, which is great. So yeah, those are some examples of that. And then these are some of our 2022 grantees. So these people were all awarded in the summer of 2022. And now their projects are kind of coming to their completion within the next couple of months. So we have Katrina Ward's project, which was a quilt memorial for Greenwood. And so the community that she is kind of engaging with is the Greenwood community in Tulsa, and highlighting, just all of the historical things that are connected to the Tulsa Race Massacre, and through the medium of like fiber arts and quilting. And then we also had Helen Opper's project, which was the Cheyenne Dickey and Edward Grady exhibition called Rising. And this was also interesting because Helen is a curator and she was working with these two artists. So this is also open to curation, like visual arts curation. So she was kind of doing all the organizing, like writing, organizing this exhibition, contacting these artists, and then the artists were creating the artwork, and they all came together for this exhibition. And they recently, I think the show is still up, it's at the Modella Gallery in Stillwater, and Cheyenne Dickey is from Stillwater, and Edward Grady is from Coyle, Oklahoma. So I think that was great, that it's an exhibition that's also in their community that they live in. And then lastly, we had Caitlin Noel Nick, and her project was Art Friends Open Door Series, which this was an opportunity to learn from guest artists and experts in the art community. And this was through a week-long lineup of virtual speakers. So hers is actually coming up next week if you all are interested in attending it, but every week during the lunch hour, like 12 to 1, she's having different people speak on different art topics, and just a way of learning about the art community and also getting to meet different people in the art community. Hers is kind of interesting, I guess, when you think about it, because the community that she is serving is actually also artists, which is awesome, and is another example of virtually accessible programming, where you still get to meet people, but through this virtual aspect of online talks. So yeah, that's most of what I have to say. And this is my contact information. So if you all would like to email me, that's really the best way to get a hold of me. And my email is right here. It's ariana@ovac-ok.org. So if you have any kind of questions about Thrive, you can feel free to email me anything. And you can also visit the website, thrivegrants.org, which just has all of the information you'll need to know about Thrive. And also our office. If for some reason you need to come to our office or you want to have an in-person meeting, we can. And just our normal OVAC website that has details about all of our other programming. And I also administer our smaller grant program. We do it multiple times a year, whereas Thrive grants, we award them once a year. And it's kind of going throughout the whole year, but we really only decide on that once a year. And our smaller grants for artists are smaller grants from like $500 to $1,500, but we do those more than once a year. So also, if you have questions about that, you can feel free to reach out to me as well. But I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just turn it over to you all if you have any questions. I would love to talk to you all about any.
Okay, I have a question on the online submission.
Yeah.
Will that time out on you?
I'm not sure, but you should be able to save it. So as long as you save it, I think you should be fine. And it has like a login, so you can use your email to log in with a password, and you can go in multiple times and edit it before you submit it.
I know I have submitted some grants where you pretty much had to type everything out and then cut and paste, because if you took your time to think and type while you
Yeah.
yeah,
It definitely shouldn't do that. And you can always like compile all of these questions in like a Word document or a Google document beforehand. That way you can kind of just copy and paste them in there instead of having to really type everything out all at once, because it is a lot of work.
And I had one more question, or maybe a couple more questions. One has to do on the start. You're notified on the 30th of July, right? Or 3rd of June. No, it's July, right? 30th of July. And then the project starts in August. Well, does that start up in August? Does that include things like buying your supplies and stuff like that? I mean, you wouldn't have to start to program your project right immediately that next month, right? Because it would take some preparation.
Yeah, definitely. And so like, for example, with Caitlin's project that we just talked about, she's been working on this all year, you know, like reaching out to artists that she wanted to invite to talk about different topics, building her website and everything. And so she's been working on it since last summer, and her actual like public facing project is just happening next week. So you have, you know, like all year to work on it.
Kind of a planning process.
Yeah. And then the culmination really just has to happen sometime before like June 2024 of next year.
And then my third and final question, I'll let somebody else talk. You said the funding is in 3 installations. So do you receive funding immediately once you're notified? Because the project that we're considering would be involved buying numerous supplies for our targeted group, our art supplies and stuff. So I just want to make sure we're not going to have to do out of pocket and then get reimbursed, that we would have the funds, or at least a third of the funds, up front at the time that we receive the award.
Yeah, I think the way that we did it last year, or this cycle that we're currently in, which we'll probably do it again this year, is that I believe within like the first month, we dispersed about 60%. And then about halfway through, we did the next 20%. And then towards the end, we did another 20%. So you will have the majority of the funds at the beginning, so you can really get started.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
No problem. And we also had a question from Isa in the chat. She asked, is there a specific or limited number of the innovator and powerhouse grants? So the 2 different $5,000 and $10,000 category. And there's really not. We haven't made any stipulations on that. We just have $60,000 total to give out. So our committee will be the ones to really decide, you know, out of all of these applications, what are the strongest ones? And then we'll kind of go from there based on, you know, if they think there's 3 powerhouse grant applications that are really good, we'll give out $30,000 to them and then split the other $30,000 with the other applications that are really great for the innovator category. it just depends what kind of submissions we get. And I think we're just going to leave that open to whatever applications have the highest quality. So yeah. Any
I
other?
have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned early on about pushing the boundary of traditional exhibition.
Mhm.
Could you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's ways that you can have an exhibition that are kind of pushing the boundaries, like having an interactive component or having artwork that isn't just, framed pieces on the wall, something a little bit different. And then there's also just the different projects that people have done that just aren't exhibitions. Like Virginia Seitz's project was like a mural festival. So it involves art, but it's not a stereotypical exhibition. It's a festival. Or like with Caitlin's project, hers was a project for artists to come together and learn about different art topics. And that one is like more centered on the engagement part and not so much the like physically creating artwork. So I think we just kind of wanted to leave it broad and that you don't have to tie yourself down to envisioning your project just to be an exhibition. You can open it up to whatever kind of ideas that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but I hope that answered it a little bit.
Right.
Hi, hi. I have a follow-up for that. So it's not that an exhibition isn't going to be considered. It's something unique about the exhibit. It should be something unique, not just a normal exhibition. Is that what? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. Because there are different projects like in this grant period, that they were exhibitions. Like with Helen Opper's project. Hers is pretty, it's more of the standard exhibition model where she's a curator and she's working with two artists. They come together for this show. And we have another artist, his name is Greg Standridge, and he is working with some people and they're having an exhibition opening at Main Site in Norman. But his, I think, was like the media of he's making like wood inlay, like really large scale pieces. That was an interesting
Something unique.
Yeah, something unique. And yeah, definitely exhibitions aren't going to be like totally off the board. Our committee will definitely, read every application and consider every application, and just see what is the strongest out of everything that was submitted.
And did I hear right that the second week of May, you're willing to review a draft of the proposal and we could get feedback at that point?
Yeah. So I believe it's the 15th through the 18th. And you can email me if you're interested in that. We can set up an appointment. And I can either, if you want to send me like a Word document or a Google document with your stuff, I can read through it and annotate it and send it back to you. And we can also have a Zoom meeting if that would be more conducive to going over it. But yeah, I will be having those office hours in May. So
thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Are there any other questions that anyone has?
I think you've answered all of mine.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. It's very clear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to do this with us.
Yeah, of course. Because we have so much information on the website that I think it's helpful, but sometimes it's nice to just be able to actually talk to somebody and, get some of your questions answered and hear from, actually the people that work here, what we're envisioning for this program. So yeah, I think with that, we can call it a day. But yeah, you all have been great, and it's really nice to meet you. And again, feel free to contact me with any questions that you have. I would be more than happy to talk to you all. So yeah,
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
thank you
you.
all. Have a nice night.